It was a cold Christmas evening, the kind of night where the air feels thick with frost, and even the brightest lights can't seem to chase away the chill. The streets were bustling with holiday shoppers, laughter echoing from nearby homes, and the warmth of family gatherings just around the corner. Yet, amidst all the festivities, there was one person who seemed to have been forgotten, an old man, sitting alone on a corner, with nothing but the tattered coat on his back and a cardboard sign that read, "Please help, need a place to stay." The world continued on, wrapped in its holiday cheer. But one young boy, no older than 12, saw the old man. His heart felt something, a pull, something that told him he couldn't just walk by like everyone else. His name was Jake. He wasn't rich by any means. He lived in a modest home with his mum, and their holiday traditions were simple but full of love. He didn't have much in his pocket that night, just a few dollars he had saved up for a toy he'd been eyeing for months. But seeing the homeless man in the cold made Jake stop. In a moment of clarity, he made a decision that would change everything. Jake approached the man and without hesitation, handed over the few dollars he had. "I'm sorry, I don't have much," he said softly, "but I think you could use this for a warm place to stay tonight." The old man looked up at him, surprise mixed with gratitude in his tired eyes. He was speechless for a moment before he muttered a soft, "Thank you." It was a small act of kindness, but to Jake, it was everything. As he turned to leave, he felt a warmth inside, as if the Christmas spirit had found its way into his heart. But Jake's good deed didn't go unnoticed. Standing just a few steps away, a stranger had overheard the interaction. A man, perhaps in his 30s, dressed in a sharp coat and a scarf, had watched the entire exchange. He had been walking past, on his way to a celebration with friends. But something about the boy's act of kindness stopped him in his tracks. His eyes lingered on Jake and the homeless man for a moment longer before he stepped forward, his own heart stirred by the scene he'd just witnessed. The stranger, a man named Ben, couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for Jake. He didn't know why, but it was like the boy had reminded him of something he had lost, a connection to kindness, to humanity, and in that fleeting moment, something sparked in Ben's chest. Without even thinking, he turned and walked into the small shop nearby, his mind racing. What happened next was something no one could have predicted. Ben returned to the street moments later, but this time with a small, neatly wrapped package in his hands. He looked around, searching for the boy who had given so selflessly. And there, not far off, he saw Jake walking down the sidewalk, unaware that his small act of kindness had caught the attention of a stranger who had decided to pay it forward. Ben walked up to Jake, his footsteps quick, his breath heavy with anticipation. When Jake turned, he saw the man holding the gift. "Hey, kid," Ben said, his voice calm, but tinged with a sense of wonder. "I couldn't help but overhear what you did back there. You're a good person, Jake. You did something very special for that man tonight." Jake blinked, a little startled by the stranger's sudden approach, but there was something about Ben's expression that put him at ease. Thank you," Jake replied, a bit confused. "I just thought he could use it. You know, Christmas and all." Ben nodded, as if the boy's words had struck a chord within him. "Well," Ben continued, "I know it's Christmas, and we're all supposed to be celebrating, but you've done something tonight that goes beyond just a holiday gesture. And for that, I want to give you something." He extended the gift to Jake, who hesitated, unsure of what to do. The package was small, wrapped in festive paper, with a shiny bow. "Why are you giving this to me?" Jake asked, still trying to process what was happening. Ben smiled softly, "Because sometimes The world needs more people like you. And sometimes, a small gesture of kindness can inspire something much bigger. You never know how far your actions can reach. Jake's eyes widened as he took the package from Ben's hands. His fingers brushed against the paper, feeling the weight of something special inside. But before he could even unwrap it, Ben turned to leave, his figure disappearing into the crowd, leaving Jake standing there in confusion and awe. What was inside the package? And why had Ben felt compelled to give it to him? Jake couldn't help but wonder if this was just the beginning of something much bigger than he ever imagined. But as he stood there, holding the gift in his hands, he knew one thing for sure. The kindness he had shown that Christmas night had started something far beyond what he could have ever dreamed. To be continued. Jake stood frozen for a moment, staring at the small, perfectly wrapped package in his hands. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just any gift. It felt like the kind of present that was meant for someone special, someone who had earned it. He glanced around the crowded street, but Ben had already disappeared into the sea of people. His thoughts swirled in confusion. Who was that man? Why had he given him something? And more importantly, what was inside the package? But Jake didn't have much time to dwell on the mystery. His mom would be expecting him soon, and Christmas was still to be celebrated at home. She had worked hard this year, and though money had been tight, she made sure their small home was filled with warmth, love, and a sense of togetherness. They didn't have much, but they made the most of what they had. And tonight was no different. It was supposed to be a night of happiness, family, and togetherness. So Jake decided to save the gift for later and headed home. As he walked, the streets seemed even busier, the lights brighter. But despite all the cheer, something gnawed at him. The thought of the homeless man kept creeping into his mind. The way the old man had looked at him with such gratitude made Jake feel like he had done something important, something that went beyond just giving a few dollars. It wasn't just about the money. It was about showing someone that they weren't invisible, that they mattered. When Jake got home, he found his mum already preparing dinner. The smell of roasted turkey filled the air, and there were candles lit on the table, casting a soft glow over the room. It was a humble celebration, but it felt like home. His mum, Maria, was the heart of their family. A single mother who had worked long hours at a local diner to keep a roof over their heads. She didn't have the luxury of big gifts or extravagant celebrations, but she always made sure Christmas was magical in its own way. "Hey, Mom," Jake said, slipping off his shoes and hanging his coat on the hook. "I saw something really cool tonight." Maria looked over, her eyes softening at the sight of her son. "Oh yeah, what was that?" Jake sat down at the table, still holding the gift Ben had given him. "I helped a man, a homeless man. I gave him my money for a place to stay, and then this guy came out of nowhere and gave me this." He placed the package on the table, his fingers gently brushing the paper as he spoke. Maria raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "A gift for you, huh? That's unexpected. What's inside?" Jake hesitated. He wasn't sure if he should open it yet, but as he looked at his mom's face, full of concern and love, he felt like he needed to explain more. "I don't know why he gave it to me, Mom. He said it was because I did something good, but I don't know. It just feels strange, like there's more to it, like I was supposed to do something bigger." His voice faltered as he spoke, unsure of what he meant, but feeling the weight of it nonetheless. Maria walked over and sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. She knew Jake well enough to know when something was bothering him. "Sometimes, doing the right thing can lead to more than we expect," she said softly. "But Jake, don't get too caught up in what others think. The act of kindness you showed was enough. You helped that man when he needed it the most. You didn't need any reward." Jake nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling that the gift Ben had given him was part of something bigger, something that he hadn't quite figured out yet. Later that night, after dinner and a quiet celebration with his mom, Jake lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His mind wouldn't let him rest. The gift was still sitting on his desk, untouched, waiting. He couldn't ignore it any longer. There was something pulling him to open it, something that felt like a puzzle, begging to be solved. As he finally unwrapped the package, his breath caught in his throat. Inside was a simple leather wallet, worn but well cared for, and a small folded note. He opened the note carefully, reading the words written in elegant handwriting. "Sometimes, the greatest gift is the one that reminds us of who we are and what we're capable of. You did more tonight than you realize. Keep it close, and you'll see." Jake was stunned. The words felt like they held a deeper meaning. But what was it? Who was this man, and why had he left him with such a cryptic message? Was it just a kind gesture, or was it a message that would lead him down a different path? The next day, Jake couldn't stop thinking about the wallet. He showed it to his mom, but she didn't know anything about it either. She thought it was a nice gift though, and reminded him to be careful with it. It didn't seem to hold any great significance to her, but for Jake, it was the beginning of a mystery he couldn't ignore. He decided to take a walk the following afternoon, hoping that a change of scenery might help him clear his mind. As he wandered down the same street where he had met the homeless man, Jake spotted something strange. There was the man again, sitting on the same corner with his cardboard sign. But this time, he wasn't alone. There was another person beside him, someone dressed similarly to Ben. The two were talking, their heads bent low in conversation. Jake's heart raced. Could this be a coincidence? Or was there something more going on here? With his curiosity piqued, Jake approached cautiously, trying to make out what they were saying. He didn't want to intrude, but something inside him felt like he had to know more. This was no ordinary Christmas story. Jake stood a few feet away, watching the man and the stranger in quiet conversation. His heart was pounding in his chest as he tried to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't just some coincidence. It felt like something bigger was unfolding right in front of him. He could barely hear the conversation, but he noticed the homeless man was smiling. There was a sense of ease in his demeanor now, something Jake hadn't seen before. The stranger beside him, the one who reminded Jake of Ben, was speaking calmly, his voice low but reassuring. After a few moments, Jake couldn't stand it any longer. His curiosity pushed him forward, and he found himself walking toward the two men. As he approached, he made sure to stay out of earshot, not wanting to eavesdrop on their private moment, but also hoping for some clarity. When the stranger saw Jake, his eyes brightened, a knowing smile tugging at his lips. He turned to the homeless man and said something Jake couldn't quite catch, then nodded toward him. "Jake," the stranger said, his voice smooth. "I knew we'd meet again." Jake froze. You know me." The homeless man looked at Jake, his eyes filled with a deep warmth. "He does," the man said, his voice raspy but kind. "And so do I in a way." Jake's mind spun. "What's going on here?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Who are you?" The stranger stepped closer, his eyes gleaming with something Jake hadn't expected. Genuine gratitude. "I'm Ben," he said, offering a hand, "and I'm here to explain why I gave you that gift." The realization hit Jake like a wave. Ben wasn't just a random stranger. He was the man who had watched him help the homeless man. And he was part of something much bigger. But why? Jake was desperate to understand. Ben continued, The man you helped. His name is Richard. He's been living on the streets for years, and he's seen it all: cruelty, loneliness, and hopelessness. But he's also witnessed people like you, people who still care. Your kindness last night sparked something in him, Jake. It reminded him that people haven't completely forgotten what it means to love and care for others. And it's something he hasn't felt in a long time. Jake's heart thudded harder in his chest. So, what does this have to do with you and the wallet? Ben's eyes softened, and he placed a hand on Richard's shoulder. I'm a volunteer who works with people in need. People like Richard. I saw your actions, and I wanted to reward your kindness, but not with something material. I wanted to give you a chance to feel the impact of what you did. That wallet, he said, pausing as he looked at Jake. It wasn't just a gift. It's a reminder that every small act of kindness has the power to change someone's world. Your act of giving that man money for a place to stay, it didn't just help him. It helped you too. You reminded me of what I was missing, of why I do this work in the first place. Jake blinked, trying to absorb everything. But why me? I don't deserve all this. I just did what anyone would do. Ben smiled. That's the thing, Jake. Not everyone would do what you did. It takes someone special to see beyond their own world and recognize when someone else is in need. You didn't just give money, you gave hope. And that's worth more than anything I could have bought you. Jake felt a lump form in his throat. The weight of Ben's words sunk in. It wasn't about the gift. It was about the ripple effect his kindness had set in motion. His small gesture had started something larger than he ever could have imagined. Richard, the homeless man, looked up at Jake, his weathered face creased in a gentle smile. I don't know how to thank you, son, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You've done more for me than anyone has in years. You've restored my faith in humanity. Jake swallowed hard, feeling the enormity of what he'd done. I didn't think it would make such a difference, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Ben clapped him on the shoulder. Sometimes, Jake, it's the simplest things that have the greatest impact. You've given both Richard and yourself something that can't be bought, a reminder of what kindness can do. The air around them seemed to quiet for a moment, as if everything was pausing to let the weight of the moment settle in. Jake looked at the two men, at the way they were connected now. Because of his one small decision, he realized that sometimes the most profound changes in life start with something as simple as noticing someone who needs help and acting on it. As Jake turned to leave, he felt something inside him shift. He was still the same boy, walking home to his mom, but he was different now, more aware of the power his actions could have, more attuned to the struggles of others. It was as if his eyes had opened, and he could now see the world in a new light. When he got home that evening, he took a moment to reflect on the gift he'd received. Not just the wallet, but the lesson. His mom was still cleaning up after dinner, humming a soft Christmas tune. Jake hugged her from behind, feeling the warmth of his family all around him, and as he whispered, I think I understand now, Mom. He realized that Christmas wasn't just about the presents. It was about the moments of kindness that can change everything. Sometimes, the most powerful gifts are the ones we give without expecting anything in return.